Hello, everybody. Welcome to Witnesses Top 10 Tips. I am Chris Erickson. I use they, them pronouns. Who am I? Middle school teacher. Doesn't really matter for this context. Here's what does. I'm a mock trial national champion. I was a national outstanding witness, and I was an all American attorney. I may not know real trial, but I sure know mock trial. This is one of my areas of expertise, and I'm here to help you become a better witness. Quick note before I get started. I'm in my guinea pig room right now. That's Genevieve right there. If you hear squeaking, that's why. Is this an ideal location to film a video for the Minnesota State Bar Association? No, I wouldn't recommend it. Is this the space available to me in the time of COVID? Yes, this is the space available to me in the time of COVID. Uh, Here's what I'm going to go through today. I got 3 basic tips, 3 tips for direct, 3 tips for cross, and the number one biggest tips for all witnesses ever that each and every one of you witnesses should follow. Let's start with those basic tips. Number 1, know your affidavit. Read it every single day, write about it, talk about it, know what's good for your side, know your weaknesses. You gotta know this affidavit inside and out. In part because, you gotta write a direct examination. In part because if you don't know the affidavit, there's a cross-examining attorney asking you questions about your affidavit that you don't know the answer to, that cross-examining attorney is going to win. And you don't want them to you don't want that to happen. Step 2, know your witness. Where are they from? How do they walk? Oh, I wish this could still be a thing. I know y'all are doing trial online. I never had to do trial online because I'm old now and was not a student during a global pandemic. But how somebody walked up to the stand really could tell a lot about the character. You can still know how they talk, how they sit. In fact, how they sit might actually be pretty important if you're doing the trial by Zoom. Are they slouching over, sitting up straight, prim and proper, constantly adjusting, being more precise? Do they have guinea pigs in the background for some reason? Don't have guinea pigs in the background. Learn from my mistake. But you got to know who your witness is. You got to know their background, and this is something that largely you have some control over. You might not have birthplace locked in, but you can think about what your character did growing up, what they were like in school, where they went to college. You can make up an rich inner life for any witness you're playing, and you don't even need to say any of those words on the stand. As long as you have them in your mind, your character is going to be a more full, fleshed out character, and you're going to get more points in the long run. Let's take a look at, I missed one more thing. How do they feel about this whole trial thing? This is a really important question to keep track of. Like, if your witness is on the stand and cares very deeply about the outcome of this trial, they are going to be more focused, more attentive, more nervous. If they're a bit more impartial, maybe an expert witness, just, sitting up straight, very calm. All witnesses should probably try to be calm, but, do keep in mind, what's the mindset of this witness going into trial? In order to write a good direct, in order to be a good witness, you gotta know your witness. You also gotta dress like your witness. To be clear, I am not telling you to costume. Do not costume. Uniforms and props are kitschy. They're annoying. They're allowed in college, and when I judge college mock trial, I typically score down people who have really kitschy uniforms and props. Like when a doctor has a stethoscope around the neck. No, get out of here. Nobody likes that. You're here to testify. You're not here. You're not here to help patients. Do not costume. It's also, against the rules. Think about how fancy they're going to be. Suit, dress, tie, skirt, what kind of materials. Right now, I'm wearing a bow tie, I'm wearing a collared shirt. I got kind of a tweed-adjacent jacket. So if you were to guess, like, what type of witness I'm setting myself up to be, guess. You guessed it. I'm an expert witness. I look kind of like a nerd. My hair is up. I'm not sure if you could see that earlier. But yeah, think about how fancy your witness is going to dress. Thrift shops have great stuff. Just make sure you mask up before you go because, pandemic. But if you need a good bow tie, you could probably find one at a thrift shop. If you need a good jacket, yeah, you can probably find a suitable one. You can find this stuff for cheap. And yeah, just make sure you know how fancy your witness is going to be. The big exception here is if your witness would not dress appropriately for trial, you need to dress appropriately for trial. This means no jeans. Now you might be saying to yourself, wait a minute, we're going to be on Zoom. Nobody could ever know if the person on camera is wearing jeans. I'm absolutely wearing jeans right now. I guess this should be modified to no visible denim. Because I have seen witnesses take the stand in jean jackets. Jean jackets, they're closer to fine. I could see an argument for that, maybe. What I couldn't see an argument for is cut-off jean shorts and a cut-off jean vest over a Metallica tank top. I saw a witness take the stand with that garb a couple years back, and it was not appropriate for the federal courthouse that the tournament was in. So make sure that you're dressing appropriately for trial. Dress nice. How nice? It's going to depend on your witness. Let's move on to talk about 3 tips for direct. So before you write, find your biggest point. Look through that affidavit, look through your exhibits, figure out the number one strongest thing that this witness can say in court, and boom, that becomes your last question and answer. Yeah, I'm recommending that you start with the end of the direct, then start to sort of work your way backwards a little bit. Find a way to build up to it. What information do you need that leads to it? What kind of expertise do you need to say it? Build up step by step, evidence, emotion, and pace, all going to that last big question. The reason I'm having you do this is that, it just makes for a more organized, more streamlined direct. You're not there to tell a big, sweeping story of everything that happened. No. You're there to tell a very specific story leading to a very specific piece of evidence that helps your case. Be strategic. Don't say everything. Be strategic. Next tip for direct. Establish your character as soon as possible, like within the first 3 questions. Preferably on the way to the stand. Alas, this the time of COVID. I've been trying to think about ways you could do this with online trial. Is there a way that you could potentially be like, if you're an elderly character, maybe have a hard time with muting? If you're a professional, think about like what's going on behind you. Maybe, don't have a guinea pig cage behind you if you're an expert witness. That kind of conflicts with the whole energy that you're trying to give when you're giving a presentation for the Minnesota State Bar Association. But think about how you're going to establish your character with what's going on behind you. Character quips are a must, and when I say character quip, I mean some sort of line that is unique to not just your witness, but you as an individual character playing that witness. I'm talking about things that are not in the affidavit, that have to do with either your background or your professional life or anything to do with your character that you come up with yourself. You need them, but that doesn't mean jokes are a must. Jokes in trial usually don't go over super well because trials tend to be serious, pretty serious. You don't want to be goofing around when there's a dead body. I know there's no dead body in this particular case, but we're still talking about a pandemic. We're still talking about serious stuff. So sitting on the stand in a trial and cracking jokes is probably not your best bet. And there is an exception to this, because if your character says a joke that your character does not know is a joke, then you can get some pretty clean laughs in there, some pretty good character points, and not feel like you're breaking the mood or you're being too unprofessional. Now, the best example of this, and this is the example I've given every time I've given this talk, I think this is the 3rd time, maybe 4th, I don't remember how many years. But there's a guy named Ian Lambert, and he's basically mock trial royalty at this point. And he took the stand as a toy designer. And he sat on the stand, and he's very just sad-looking dude. And he looks up, and he says, well, my mother never used to let me play with any toys. She used to tell me that joy was bad for my asthma. So I dedicated my life giving children what I was never allowed. Fun. And the entire courtroom burst out laughing immediately. This was like the funniest joke they had ever heard in a trial, but that witness was not cracking a smile. That was that witness's very sad, very serious life story, and even though the rest of the world can see it's a joke, it cannot be a joke to the witness. Because if it's a joke to the witness, then they're being unprofessional in court. This is a very fine line. This is a very tricky thing to do, but if you feel like you have a joke that you can do it, go for it. Test it out a couple times. It's always important to, do scrimmages, do invitationals before the actual season. Do what you can to test it out. See if it works. Next up, we got to talk about maintaining your character throughout. Keep going with the trial appropriate quips. Like, those are not just for the start of the direct examination. I've seen so many directs that start with a really big character. First 3 questions, you're saying great things, you're establishing a great character, and then the rest of the direct examination, you're kind of sitting there being a boring person. Don't sit there being a boring person. That's not the way to go. Keep going with the quips, keep the character up. Any longer answers, like 3-ish sentences on, they are perfect for sustained eye contact, and I recognize that's kind of hard in the distance era. What I've been doing is I've been looking at my own video on the right, and I've been looking at the slides on the left. You may have been able to notice. But on those longer answers, don't let the judge catch you looking at the slides. Don't let him catch you looking at some notes. Look into that camera. Make some serious eye contact, and deliver those longer answers and really make a connection with the scoring judge. And if you have an accent, keep it. You shouldn't have an accent. The rule on my teams, both as a competitor and a coach, was always that you had to use the accent consistently for the entire practice for 5 days in a row. And we practice for 5 days in a row. We practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for about an hour and a half to 2 hours each day. And at every single one of those practices, you needed to keep that accent perfect. And basically nobody ever made that cut. I think we had like 1 accent in my time on that team. If the risk of breaking it is too high, the risk of sounding goofy is too high. It's really hard for me to recommend you do an accent for this kind of thing. Sorry. Let's talk tips for cross. So first thing is you got to maintain your character on cross. The drop in character is the fastest way to lose points on cross immediately. If you're upbeat on direct examination with your directing attorney, and oh yeah, you're very upbeat, you're happy, you're fun, you're having a great time, you got to stay upbeat. It doesn't matter how much you dislike your crossing attorney, you got to maintain your character. And if you're helpful, if you're like, oh, like, I'm sorry, that's not quite what it means. If you're trying to explain things, if you're being kind, if you're being helpful, you got to stay helpful on cross-examination too. If you drop that character, if you suddenly become a cross-examination robot whose only goal is to trip up opposing counsel, you're going to lose points, and you don't want to lose points. Be clever. Be sneaky about maintaining. If you're being helpful, you can be a little sneaky in that helpfulness. Say, I'm sorry, that's not quite what that means. I'm happy to explain a little bit more. You don't want to be mean at any point in time in trial. It's just unprofessional. This mostly comes up on cross-examination, too, because that's the time in trial when it is one versus the other, back and forth. And if a witness suddenly becomes mean, if a witness suddenly it becomes clear that they're trying to trip up that attorney, it's not a good look. You're going to lose points. Don't do it. Be clever, not mean. Next lesson is to pick your battles. Overfighting is the second fastest way to lose points in trial. I cannot tell you how many witnesses went from, an 8 on direct to a 5 or even a 4 on cross because they just would not stop fighting the cross-examining attorney on every single question. Let the little stuff go. If it doesn't matter the case, just say yes. It'll be over faster. Don't argue the big points. Explain them. Again, this isn't a fight. This is a conversation. It is a power struggle. The cross-examining attorney is trying to get you to say certain things that you might not want to say that might be bad for your side. But if the cross-examining attorney has something wrong, try to explain it a little bit. If you try to be argumentative, it's just not a good look, especially if your character needs to be a little bit more impartial. So yeah, just don't argue them. Explain them. And here's my favorite tip to give out. The strongest answer on cross is no. One word. No. Just nice, calm, no. Because when you say no, they only really have 3 options. They can ask an open-ended question, that you can just run away with a question and tell a full story. Oh, if a cross-examining attorney ever asks you an open-ended question on cross, it is a gift. Run away with it. The attorney might go back to the affidavit and read to check in on something, which is super awkward and uncomfortable and doesn't look great for the attorney. That's number 2. Or they can just move along. If they know you got them, they'll just move on to the next question and you'll be golden. All 3 of these things are kind of win for you. So if an attorney asks you a question and your affidavit says something else, even if there's just like small little tweak, they got one thing wrong, just say no. All you got to do is say no. The number one biggest tip for all witnesses ever: if you only take one tip out of these 10, this is it. Please, 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 word for word memorization is the worst. Seriously, I get that you want the security of a script, but for real, it's the worst. Oh my goodness, I cannot stress enough how boring it is as a judge to listen to somebody who's just reciting a script. I don't care what's written down on a piece of paper that's sitting on the other side of the room. I don't care what's written down on a document that you have up on your screen during the Zoom call. That does not matter to me. What matters to me is that you're looking me in the eye as much as you can, as much as technology allows, that you're telling me a good story, and that you're, seem natural, that you seem like a human being. And the worst way to, skip that, word for word memorization. Just don't do it. So that's the end of this particular presentation. I also have one on cross-examination that you might want to check out. Totally up to you. How you spend your time is up to you. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. I'm just here to tell you how to be a better witness. Yeah, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.